Hi everyone. Sorry for the being day late for the video. Yesterday was kind of a rough day for me. I'll explain that in a minute. This is Gracie. She's 3.5 months old. She was born October 13th. And I call her my therapy kitty because she knows just what I need, some cuddling and some hugs and kisses. And she's sweet. She's onerous sometimes, huh? Yeah. But she's sweet and I love her to pieces. So yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of a dear friend's passing. I've known he and his wife for, at that point last year, 26 years. He was the godfather of my daughter, and our families were close. In fact, he and his wife moved up here to be closer to our family. And it kind of hit hard, partially because I had not seen him in months, and I couldn't go see him at the hospital when he had a stroke originally. And I think I explained that in last week's video about how it was because I didn't want to deal with my ex's stupidity on them while he's sick and his wife is worried about him. And then his wife actually didn't want to deal with his stupidity, and I don't blame her. I mean, we've been friends for so long, she can be honest with me. So all of those feelings were coming up in my brain, and yesterday was pretty good, but towards yesterday evening, that's when it really, I got to the point, it was like, no, there was no way I could do anything. And today's been a little bit of a struggle. I've been kind of weepy. I went to take my oldest on an errand, and he just told me one thing, and it sounded kind of gruff, and it wasn't really, but it sounded gruff, and I started crying. So hopefully I can get through this video without any tears. Please excuse me if I do have tears. Also, this time last year was pretty much a turning point for me with my ex. With the friend's passing, and then I'm pretty sure I told y'all a story of the memorial service, how my ex was just being a total fool, and how that night he went into a drunken rage and put hands on me. And that was the night that I said, that's it. I had drawn the line and promised myself that I wasn't going to let that happen again. That if it did, I was calling the authorities. And sure enough, 1 month to that very day, I was calling the authorities on him for the same thing. And I guess that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is when you get to the point that you know you have to leave, that it's not going to get any better, and that you owe yourself and, more importantly, your kids drama-free. Well, life is drama, but less drama. Make that promise to yourself that you're not going to do it, because that's what it took. for me to leave, I made that promise to myself and to God that I was going to leave if it happened again. And deep down I knew it would, because let's face it, it never happens just once, and that wasn't the first time it happened. It was just, that was the pinnacle. That was the dividing line, so to speak, where I have a very long fuse, but once I get to the end of the fuse, there's no adding on. There's no a little bit more, a little bit more. No, that's it. Bam. It's done. And I want you to realize that God hates divorce. I've said this before. But God hates abuse. If Jesus died on that cross, went through the agony, if you look up the forensic details of what led up to Jesus' death on the cross, oh my gosh, it's horrible. The Romans were very brutal. They pretty much got their jollies off of torture. They were the most torturous group of people. And, they weren't satisfied with just a simple death, lopping off the head and that's it. They wanted to make it torturous. It was so torturous that Roman citizens were not allowed to go through that type of death. In other words, if you were a Roman citizen and you were sentenced to death for whatever reason, because you were a Roman citizen, you were not allowed to go through that death. They were not allowed to put you through that death on a cross. So you can imagine if Jesus allowed himself that type of death, and he did it for you. You who's watching this right now. He went through that torturous death so you could have life. Now, I'm not saying being a Christian is all rainbows and roses. No, Jesus never promised that. In fact, he promised that you will have trials because you're not of this world. So, of course, the enemy's going to take notice and do what he can to get you. But you have a promise that others don't. And so if Jesus died for you, don't you think you're worth being out of a situation that's abusive? I'll be honest, it took a lot for me to come to grips with that. My therapist had to work many sessions on me with that because of the abuse I had gone through for so many years from not only my ex, but my father. I didn't think I had much worth. Everything from what I'm worth as a human to dealing with pain even. Oh, it's just pain. Duh. I never thought I was worth it. But my therapist, he has been working with me and showing me that I am worth what God says I am. And you're worth it too. You're worth death on that cross. So, or someone dying on the cross for you. So you're worth to not be abused. You're worth to be treated respectfully and with decency and with dignity. That's what you're worth. And it's taken me a while. It's been almost a year. It'll be a year March 10th. So this time of year is right now. It's been kind of rough because there's a few anniversaries. The first one was yesterday, and then the anniversary of the funeral when I drew the line, and then the anniversary of when I called the police. So it's going to be a rough couple of months. But through it all, I know God has gotten me through it and will get me through it. There are days that I'm overwhelmed and I'm just like, God, I need you. Please help me. And He's right there to help me sort through my feelings and help me get focused, because my biggest thing is focusing on one thing. My sister-in-law and I have a term, it's called a squirrel moment, where you say, oh, I like this, oh, squirrel. Yeah, that's me. And then I'll get so overwhelmed that my brain will literally lock up. So God helps me through that. And it's just the biggest thing is knowing I'm worth loving. God loves you. And He put His love in me. I love people enough that I'm putting out all my feelings on these videos. People have messaged me saying it's so brave that going out on a line like this, putting out my feelings. Even my therapist has said it, and it's not bravery. It's just loving people enough to not want others to go through what me and my kids went through. Yeah, I'm healing tremendously. Pretty quickly, considering I guess I've always been one to heal quickly, to bounce back. But there's still years ahead for me to heal and for my kids to heal. And if I can prevent even one person from going through that, it'll be worth it. Because this is not what God intended a relationship to be. This is a broken world, and things like this will happen. But that's not what God intended. God wants you, as a person whom He loves, to be loved in return. Most people that are abused have big hearts, because usually it's the big hearts that make them the victim. I know that is with me, because I have one huge heart, and there's times I call it a fault. because my huge heart has gotten me used more times than I care to admit. But if you, who are imperfect, can love like that, how much more God? How much more God, who is a perfect and all-knowing being? And maybe one day I'll go into the apologetics of how I know God exists, not just from my experience and from how many times He saved me from my own stupidity. Oh my goodness, y'all. When I was younger, God saved me quite a few times from my stupidity. I'm sure my guardian angel was like, God, do you hate me? Why did you put me guarding her? But let's face it, for our kids, those of us who are parents, would we not do anything for our kids? I know I would. I know I would take a bullet for my child, for any one of my children. And I know you parents out there would feel the same way. So how much more a perfect God? And like I started to say, and I got distracted, I'll get into the apologetics maybe in another video. I'm not the best apologist, but I'll get to it. But God exists, and He is there. And He loved you enough to send His only Son to be there, to die for you. For you. So He doesn't want you in this relationship that's abusive. Even if I know you may be telling yourself, oh, my spouse or my partner is just going through a rough time, I'll just pray for him and he'll get better. Or I'll just be a little bit more nice and understanding and he'll... No. Take it from one who knows. Because I thought that. I thought if I just become the perfect wife, if I become the most godly wife ever, that He'll see the change in me and then He'll change. No. Oh, He was loving the change in me. But He started accusing me of the very thing that He was doing, which was He wanted a change in me so He wouldn't have to deal with any of my faults and stupidity, because I have plenty. But He didn't want to change. He didn't want to focus on what He needed to do. But yet, that's what He was saying about me, that I wanted Him saved because I wanted the new person. I wanted a godly husband, which, well, I wanted Him saved because I wanted him right with God. Did I want a better husband? Yeah. But changing yourself, though, no matter how much you may need to change, you're not going to change your spouse or your partner. And that person is never going to change until they see they have to. And more often than not, like in the case with my ex, he's going through changes right now. And But the only reason why he's changing is because he doesn't have a choice. It's not because he sees he needs to change. And I'm not saying there's not exceptions, but 99 times out of 100, they're not going to change until they're given no choice. They're sometimes, when they hit rock bottom, when they lose everything, then they'll change, and then maybe things can be reconciled, but more often than not, the only reason they've changed is because they didn't have a choice. And that if they go back with that person, they'll go right back to where they were, because it's a comfort thing. Just like I know that if I went back to my ex, like, let's say I take my ex back after the protection order. Let's say I let the protection order expire. I don't get it renewed. I start talking to my ex, and I take him back. He's gonna come back and be on his best behavior for a good while, maybe even a year. But once he gets comfortable and sees that he's not going to go anywhere and that I'm not going anywhere, that's when the true self is going to come back out, and he's going to be just like he was, if not worse. Because then he's going to be mad at me that all of this happened, he has no rights, or, whatever. So the thought of taking him back no way I can. And I'm not going to risk losing a relationship with my kids when things are healing with me and my kids by leaps and bounds. I'm not going to screw that up. And so I ask you to think about, because it's also shown that an abused spouse, it takes them leaving on average 5 to 7 times before they're gone for good. And I believe that's probably very close to accurate, if not dead on. Because you never want to lose hope. But the thing is, you're not losing hope in the fact that you're just giving up. You're facing reality and having more, and seeing yourself as being more deserving of better treatment. Because let's face it, you're better off alone than you are with an abuser. And you are what you say God is. God says you're worth sending his only son to die on the cross for you. So if you're worth that, if you're worth going through such a torturous death, then you're worth having a healthy relationship or no relationship. Because right now I'm single, I'm not even looking. I have a cousin that said that, and a friend even that said that, I'll find me another man that's more deserving of my love. I'm not looking for, he's going to have to come find me, and God's going to have to put a big neon sign on him saying, this one's it, because I'm not going to, right now, I'm too scared. I'd like, like I told my therapist, I would love to find a man that loved me for me, who I am, loved me genuinely with all of my imperfections, and I know there are many, rather than love what he thought I could be in some sick, twisted fantasy that he had. And believe me, if I told y'all some of his fantasies, it would make your hair stand on end. But I would love to know what that's like. But I'm more comfortable being alone right now. I'm looking just to get my foundation going, to start being a foster parent. I need a bigger place first than just a little 600 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment. But I'm just good being alone. Because right now, I know that I'm way better off alone than I am with an abusive relationship. And I don't trust myself to be able to find a good man. God's going to have to find him for me. So, I'm good being alone. And those who are abused are way better off alone than they are being abused. If God says you're worth more than being abused, take God up on that. If you need help to leave, reach out to friends, reach out to family. There are hotlines to reach out to in your area for battered women's centers, even the non-emergency line of the police. The police could give you ideas and resources. But just leave. Because you're worth way more than getting abused. And your kids, if you have any kids, are worth way more than seeing their parent being abused. Because that traumatizes them. Even if the abuser doesn't abuse the children are still being abused by having to witness their parent being abused. A lot of my kids' trauma is from them watching their mom being abused. Don't put that on your kids. Leave the relationship. Do what you have to do. You're better off alone. There's enough resources out there that you can find them. You just gotta look it up. Come up with a plan. And give yourself some dignity. You guys have a good week. And I'll see y'all next week. Thank you guys so much for the support y'all given me. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much. Keep subscribing, hitting like, and share these videos. Y'all have my permission to share away. Y'all have a good week.